Ali, obviously following the restructuring of the LCCC Academy towards the back end of last year, could you just try and provide us a bit more detail, a bit more insight as to what that means for the Academy going forward?
Yeah. So when I came on board, and also when Sean started as CEO, that the pathway had a number of layers to it that have been historical, through the years. So the junior programme was called the Leicestershire Young Cricketers, which is a herald back to the days when it was run by the cricket board and it was schools were involved and all that type of stuff. So there's Leicestershire Young Cricketers was one label that was around, and then you got all the age group squads that are individually called under 11s, 12s, 13s and all that type of stuff. And then there was an emerging players programme, which was another layer, another level within that structure, and a sub-academy at one time underneath the academy, and then on top of that an academy, which was like the pinnacle, which was the best players that were going to move on. And it all, in lots of ways, I felt that those artificial layers weren't necessarily healthy for players' motivation in terms of what they were trying to achieve, and a lot of the players and parents involved, their main questions were about what they've got to do to be on the emerging players programme or to be given that status, as opposed to how do they get to be a professional cricketer, or what do they need to do, how's their cricket going, are they playing well, are they winning games of cricket, are they contributing, and how are they developing, and having a long-term vision. It was all very very much about the next layer and in the thing, and that for me felt a little bit uncomfortable, because I always think players develop at their own time and in their own space, and I want to provide a system that enables a long-term view for player development, that we look at ultimately what the players come out at later on. So that was the sort of what we discovered when I started, and what we uncovered, and Sean, obviously coming from a football background as well, things seemed much clearer in football academies in terms of how it's run, because they're just called football, Leicestershire Academy, and everything comes under that. So we liked that model, and we felt, and I felt, by putting everything under the academy banner, hopefully that would be less exclusive and more inclusive, that everyone feels part of the academy and they're on that pathway and on that journey to then being a professional cricketer, and that basically they're just playing the different age groups through that academy system. So rather than it being about being on the outside of the next programme up, emerging players programme, what do I need to do to get into that programme, that they're all in it, they're already in it, and they're just moving through it organically in their own time. That's what I hoped, and that was the aim, was to be more inclusive. Everyone's in the academy, and everything is classed as Leicestershire County Cricket Club Academy, and then you just play in your age groups from under 11s, 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s, and then under 18s, and you move through the system in that way. And then alongside that, what we would do then is give scholarships to players between the ages of 16 and 18 who we feel are just have shown the potential to be future first-class cricketers. Obviously, that's not definitive. We might get that wrong. The odd, we might miss a player and then put him on later, or put someone on earlier. It's not definitive, but that gives us that ability to just provide a little bit more support to people that we think we're identifying as having high potential.
So, to start at the very beginning of the journey for a potentially emerging player within the Leicestershire area, what sort of things do you and your coaching team, your scouts network, look for in order to be able to invite someone down for a trial and then hopefully get them onto the academy, to then obviously with our end goal being to earn a scholarship?
Well, the trial system, we've just done a pathway review system of the whole system, which I felt again was important, where we've got people from various parts of the pathway, people involved in leagues and clubs, to myself, to lots of different people from different parts of it, to decide what the best way for that to happen is. And ultimately what we want to have is multiple entry and exit points where players. So we have a nomination process where players are nominated by clubs in, at one point, and then but also that we do have a sub-county tournament potentially, like to allow people who are nominated or trialists that are identified from clubs to come and be seen, and there's a modern thing where people talk about a number of eyes, number of times. So basically, lots of people seeing players a number of times to be able to decide on them. So we're trying to get that right now and currently do that. I think in terms of your question about what we're looking for, we want people to be identifying players and to be giving us a call about players who show characteristics of competitiveness. We really want people who want to win games of cricket. So again, going back to what my answer about the academy, we've got a lot of players who wanted to get a 50 so that they could get onto the next programme. Where I always say to the players, for me, milestones of 50s and 100s aren't as important as match winning scores and bowling spells that win matches. So we really want people who show competitiveness and a desire to win and who actually go and win matches. We want people who have a great appetite for learning, so they want to get better all the time, and that they see one of the great challenges with cricket is that you fail a lot, and within that there's two parts to that. You can either fear that, and that is really holds you back, or you can see that as a real positive thing. We want to try and encourage people to look for players and develop players who see failure as learning opportunities, and every time they don't get runs, that they see that as a potential to learn and get better. So those are the types of things. It's more obviously that you can go into skills. We want people who've got great skill. Obviously, the game of cricket is a skill-based game. So we want people who are highly skilled. But that doesn't mean technically correct. It doesn't mean that they look good in a net. It means that they have skills to win those battles, to win those competitions. They find solutions. They're skillful with the bat or with the ball. So it doesn't have to look like the technical model, like the MCC masterclass, but it has to be effective, I would say. So we want those characteristics. And if you were, if I was talking to somebody who to nominate players at the very bottom of our pyramid, if they said, what do you want us to nominate? I would say, I want people who play lots of different sports. I want people who are athletic, who have got lots of movement quality. That they look like athletes, not just cricketers. Because at the younger ages, in 11s and 10s, generally the people who look good are the ones who've had the most coaching, and there's no guarantee that that's going to go on to be a first class or international cricketer. Whereas the ones who develop athletic qualities of movement, and they can develop those skills of technique and method of the way that they score runs later on, because they'll always have that hand-eye coordination. They'll have an ability to move and to field, like the first team are so desperate to have a team of brilliant fielders, because that's the way the game has gone. So that would be my thing, would be at young ages, is encourage people to play multiple sports, but also look for those people who are multiple sports players.
Yeah, it's interesting the fact that you say you're looking for people who do play multiple sports, because I think within the first team at the moment, I think Ben Mike is the perfect model of that. To my knowledge, he played rugby at quite a good level as well. Obviously picked cricket in the long run, but obviously that just goes to show how his athleticism, his hand-eye coordination, and his IQ, I guess, as well, helped him along his journey to become a professional cricketer.
Well, in all sports, if we go back to what I said, the very first thing I said about players, things we look at players is competitiveness. So playing multiple sports, playing football, playing rugby, the quality that teaches you how to compete with people. And I often say to our lads that the difference between when we play against men's club cricketers, so when the academy go out and play against the local teams, we'll quite often get beat, and very often the difference between the two teams is not textbook skill. It's not MCC masterclass. That because our lads have got all the skills. The difference is the way that they learn and the way that they compete. So these kids that we have to learn to compete with men, with adults who've got that edge. And sport is played. Sport was designed originally as a battle. It's a competition, and you have to learn to to be able to compete in that way against someone who's trying to beat you so that they don't lose, you know, and that's part of what sport's about. So yeah, playing multiple sports teaches everything from the movement characteristics to the mentality of how you play and compete against other people.